Thank you for listening to Shulchanaruchharav.com.
A single string tore from my tzitzis. Is my tzitzis still valid? Is it still kosher, or do I have to have it fixed? So as we know, it's halacha l'meisha misinai, as brought in the Gemara Menachos and in the Shulchan Aruch, chapter 11, that the tzitzis must consist of 4 long strings, which are then folded to each side to become a total of 8 strings. And if you have less, then the tzitzis is completely invalid. Nonetheless, this is only required in the initial tying of the fringes to the corner of the tzitzis, of the talus. However, once you already had kosher tzitzis, all 4 folded strings to a total of 8 strings, on your corner, and then one of them tore, this follows a new law in halacha called gardume tzitzis, or tzitzis leftovers, in which we give a special law that if it started off kosher, in certain circumstances it still remains kosher even if a string or more than one string tears. So while the law regarding if more than one string tears is a bit complex and requires individual focus, the tear of a single string, meaning one of the 8, is quite clear. It is clearly ruled in the Shulchan Aruch, in the Alter Rebbe Shulchan Aruch, chapter 12, halacha 2, and in the Mechaber 12.1, and likewise in the Alter Rebbe Siddur, that if a single string of the 8 strings tore in the loose area that extends past the braid, which is called the anaf, the tzitzis remains valid, and this applies even if it completely tore until the very bottom of the first knot. And the reason for this is, explains the Alter Rebbe, as tzitzis can only become invalid with a tear if an entire one of the 4 strings is torn or perhaps questionably torn. However, if I have at least 1/2 of the 4 strings intact, and it is thus not completely torn, the tzitzis always remains valid. Hence the halacha that if only 1 string tore out of the 8, the tzitzis is kosher, and there is no opinion who invalidates it. So it is kosher according to everyone, and you don't have to exchange and redo your tzitzis. However, we find in a number of poskim a midas chasidus, an act of piety, followed by God-fearing Jews, to make sure that their tzitzis contains 8 full-length strings of 24 centimeters, and if any of the strings have torn, even only one, to less than this amount, of 24 centimeters counting from the first knot on the bottom of the corner, then they undo the tzitzis and tie new strings onto that corner. So writes the poskim, the Chesed La'alafim, Eish La'avram of Butchach, that he received this as a tradition from a Menachem Mendel of Rimnov. And so records the Rebbe Rayatz in Sefer HaSichos, Tav Shin Dalid, and likewise the Rebbe in Igros Kodesh, volume 13, page 29. And so is also understood from a number of sources in the Alter Rebbe, the Makor Chaim, the Sfas Emes, the Kaf HaChaim, and other Achreinim. Of the reasons suggested that one should have always 8 complete strings, even though according to Allah, if only one was cut off, it's kosher, is that the strings correspond to many different matters of Kedusha, such as the 32 strings corresponding to the 32 paths of wisdom. And thus, if even one string is missing while halachically remains valid, it lacks that spiritual power that the 32 strings have. Now, all this is only if the string tore in the area of the tzitzis called the anaf, which is above the braided area above the knots. Even if it tore till the very knot, as we said. However, if the string tore within the knots itself, within the braids themselves, which is called a gdil, even one string, rules the Alter Rebbe in the Siddur, that tzitzis is completely invalid, puzzle, you cannot wear it, you must remove it, and it's a bracha levatala to recite a blessing over it. This matter was discussed in length, with all of its opinions and approaches and understandings in a separate halacha, and thus to summarize, the halacha is as follows. If a string tears, a single string tears in your tzitzis, if it tore in the braided area, the tzitzis is pasul. If it tore above the braided area and the loose string area called the anaf, the tzitzis remains kosher, even if one out of the 8 strings tore completely. However, it's a midas chasidus recorded in many poskim, including in the letters and writings of our Rebbeim, the Rebbe Rayatz and the Rebbe, to replace the tzitzis in order to have the spiritual power that every single string contains and cannot be done without.
Thank you for listening to Shulchanaruchharav.com. Our free services of making Torah knowledge available to the public depends on donors like you. Please help us continue our work through making even a small contribution at Shulchanaruchharav.com under the Daily Halacha Dedication section or in the subscription page. Also, check out our online courses and many sefarim available for purchase that will both enhance your Torah knowledge and help support our work.